Hi everybody, this is my week 6 discussion board about the gaming industry and my 5 takeaways. The first one I got into is about how this is a massive and fast growing, evolving industry. And it fascinates me to think that this is something that started in the 1940s in New York, and ever since then it's just continued to evolve and become this billion-dollar industry. By every year, it creates billions and billions of dollars, more than the box office and music industry combined. And it talks about how this industry can make a lot of potential good for everybody. And I can see that as far as their economy can go, if enough people can get the work that they need in it to help people, strive. And of course, who doesn't love playing games? And it's exciting to read or hear some of that, and even read some of that in our chapter 12 readings this week. So that was my first takeaway, just how exciting it is to know that this industry is still growing. I actually have a husband who plays games online all the time and talks about how he wants to do things in it himself one day. So it's good to know there's always a future in it, I guess, at this point. It leads me to the second one, though, because it talks about how even in the beginning there's a cost to many who work in this industry, though. Unfortunately, this industry causes more stress on people work hours wise than it should. Talks about the crunch is what they call it. It's a big issue. Workers are put under enormous pressure and overtime to meet game launch deadlines. I hear this from my husband all the time. He talks about a new game that's supposed to come out, but it got delayed because something happened. Or he'll repost about people who complained about how long it took them. That 70-hour thing is real. And it's incredibly insane to think about as a person who doesn't work in the gaming industry to be put under that much pressure. I mean, how do you have a life outside of that kind of stress and work? And at the same time, you're not making much. Most are only making like $13 an hour. And I can't even imagine how incredibly insulting that is when the industry itself makes over 500,000 or million. 500 million. At the same time, that's just in a few days. And so it's not a shock to me. It's a reality check to me that sometimes not everything is as good as it sounds. My husband, again, I talked about how he wants to go into it, but I said, if you go into this, you have to make sure you're careful what, position you get into. Because there's like 9 different steps it goes through before it gets actually put out there in the public. Excuse me, I might sneeze. Anyway, and so that's pretty crazy. I would hate for him to work 70 plus hours a week, which leads me to my third point, which is talking about how after these games launch, many people are laid off. And so that's scary to think about, after 2 to 4 years. It's kind of similar to, I think, some people who work in construction. I don't know much about it, but I do hear a lot of my friends work construction. And unless you're not, and it even mentions it, like, if you're not necessarily in minority, you can be sure you're going to have a job the next season. It is kind of sad to think that that's still an issue that we all have to face. Layoffs are, people unfortunately will pick who they think based off, looks and not just skills to keep people. So the gaming industry has a lot to still learn behind that issue. Even though it can do a lot of potential good, it's obviously still not doing what it needs to do as far as keeping up with the increasing fear of layoffs. There's that fear because of you're a woman, you're not binary, or even a color, it says. So I thought that was an interesting takeaway that I hope, because the internet is constantly creating new ways for people to speak out, and people are taking action that we can fix. Which leads me to my fourth one. About the concerns. There's only 19% of the industry is women, working women. Yet 46%, if you read in our textbook again, our gamers are women. And it's interesting that you would not have, I guess, more opportunity for women to join that industry, considering 46% of your clientele is women. And the sad reality that there's sexual harassment going on, that there's even been movements that have gone on that have made people aware of this, and that it's interesting to me. When I grew up, gaming was definitely still a guy thing, but I always asked for a Game Boy. I never got one because I'm a girl. I was always told, like, oh, well, you won't like it, you'll like this better. And as I get older, I do like playing games online. I do like having that game on my phone that puts me into a relaxation state, that I can just, play solitaire for a couple minutes and not think about anything else. It's nice, they can be as hard or as easy or as fun or exciting as you want to make it, because there's so many to choose from. And so it was just sad that that's still happening for women, that there's such a divide, and it's a genuine issue, which goes on to the fifth one. It talks about unionization. Workers have been trying and demanding for a unionization in the gaming industry, but they're sadly haven't gotten anywhere with it, because corporations will say things like, oh, if you want to complain, we can replace you with another person who would gladly take your job. And that's sad. That still happens today in other industries, I think, that are more male dominated. And I know my job is actually less like that now than it used to be, but I used to hear about how women couldn't do things if they got pregnant working in my industry, so they didn't like to hire women. Women are shorter, so they can't really do as much as what men, and it was just, it's insulting. I've been kind of a part of that, unfortunately. They even have women who criticize other women who do it, and I really hope that this whole awakening thing of it, eye-opener to it all, can help people come together and do a purpose for the gaming industry to actually create a unionization. The internet can create a lot of good like it can bad. So it was interesting, these takeaways I've went through, because fear is real. Nobody likes to lose their jobs, especially what they enjoy, and it's just sad that the gaming industry makes it so hard for some people to do that. But what's crazy to me is, if they would allow more of it, they might actually be surprised at more successful they'd be. They just assume they're going to continue to be more successful. But I believe if they keep pushing the wrong buttons, they could easily crumble too. I don't know. We'll see how the future holds up. I know my son's really into gaming, and he's only 5. My daughter watches my husband play games, and she's only 2. And I talk gaming all the time too, and I've done it since I can remember picking up a game. I can't even remember what age that was. It's crazy how long it's been going on in my life. Obviously, games have been around since the 1940s, and there's all kinds of ways to play with them. So anyway, those are my 5 takeaways. I hope you guys all have a good weekend. Thank you for listening.